Okay, good evening and welcome everyone. This is the next course in the fractalview.com Fractal University series. This course is about shamanic embedding and the control of space using spin symmetries and real shamanic experience. And our guest speaker tonight with us is Sara Torres. Sara, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone.
Good. I think your voice is pretty clear. Hope you can clear. They said hi. Eden says hi, Sara. That's great.
Oh, hi.
And Jane says hi. Everybody's saying hi to you. That's great. So then I was going to do a short intro, and then we're going to bring in Sara. So basically, the introduction is that about how visualizing spin axes actually creates embedding of your plasma aura. What does that mean? Even in the sense of tornado steering. We've told the story many times that physics is made of wormholes and vortex and string theory, and so the ability to center yourself and create the ability to steer a tornado would, in theory, enable you to steer everything that physics talks about. Basically, physics is a tornado of charge, a vortex, a donut. So if you understand what allows a shaman to steer a tornado, you do really understand psychokinesis. That's the point. And we also know about tornadoes that tornadoes follow the center of lowest pressure. That's what they follow. So the center of low pressure is obviously created by the center of implosion, the center of perfect embedding. So you can understand that a shaman, if you saw his plasma body, the bioplasmic streamers connect from the shaman to the tornado that he's about to steer, he would say he's eating the hoocha or the anger, feeling the pain of the tornado. He's literally embedding himself as a plasma body into the charge bubble that is the tornado. And as the shaman adds centripetal force, that is what creates the center of lowest pressure, the implosion, perfect embedding, which is perfect compassion. It's both a psychology and a physics. So what we're saying now is that this process of visualizing a sequence of figure eights creates literally a center of gravity, a center of a tornado in your own aura, your bubble of charge, and that then will allow you to more effectively embed in something or someone outside you as well. For example, steering a tornado, or as Sara will describe, helping another person during a healing session get to their own bliss or healing.
Exactly. That's it. And well, if you can, then I would like to show them that image that is in of the eight that is in the website.
Yes.
If you don't mind.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And yeah, basically, I've been studying a long time all the spirituality terms that Dan has been talking about related with shamans, and also I've been very lucky meeting very amazing people with incredible abilities, and I guess shaman, it's a good word. Sometimes, well, I've been like 2 years working with a Peruvian shaman, and it was very well. It's remarkable the way they speak, for example, in terms of death, or the way they interpret time, for example. And for me, that was something I was trying really to do some technique. I was all time thinking about do some technique to make this teachable, because the thing with shamans is that they speak, they give teachings, but just if you are lucky to meet them. But this is not teachable for people that don't have like the possibility to come to contact somebody like them. So meantime, I discovered this woman from Argentina that is called Alejandra Casado, and this woman was talking about the time apertures.
Time,
and again,
the time aperture. It's like a window in time. I mean, it's very conventional physics that if you change the sampling rate, the blink rate, you actually create a window in time. More events are available to you when you blink faster. So that's a time aperture. So you're actually controlling the sampling rate. But please go ahead, Sara. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So These figures that she created this methodology that it's in the that it's I don't know if Dan is showing this image.
I have it. Yes.
So yeah,
I have the image. Yes.
And so what she's showing there is basically the way time behaves, and also the way a universe works related with time. And for me, this was really interesting, because it has to do with when you ask yourself, how does a fractal field work, and how does, like Dan says, infinite non-destructive compression work? This has to do with time, and this has to do with time apertures, if you want to understand as well, like the linear way of the way we learn, and the way, let's say,
we say that
yeah.
We say that time is defined by rotation, and so the number of axes of charge that's rotating that you can sample changes when your attention is resolved to a finer and finer spin axis. So actually you're sampling more and more axes of rotating charge at once as your attention gets focused closer to the center of the tornado. That would be a way of talking about it, maybe, Sarah, with that.
Yeah. And so basically these layers that are in the picture is the different frequencies, or the different dimensions that this time aperture is based on. And this can be a human, this can be a universe, this can be every living thing, as a fractal structure includes. And so this is when I started studying Alejandra Casado, I realized how to work with these different layers one by one, and I really had an accurate idea of how to perceive all these different frequencies, because it's a very, to have a logic and understanding of these 7 layers that makes you embed the energy really with marvelous efficiency.
And that's when Sarah and I got kind of excited, because we saw that this South American shamanic tradition of visualizing the 7 figure 8s, and as you did it, getting to a higher and higher level of perception of the layers of reality, that this actually did correspond precisely to what we had been teaching earlier about the 7 axes of spin symmetry, the tetrahedron, which are the previous picture here. So there's the 7 arrows that go through the tetra.
Exactly.
And that was the 7 color map on the surface of Taurus. And basically what this says is the plasma, the charged space around your body, you can steer that charge space if you can embed and implode and become centripetal in it. And the way to do that is to nest as many axes of rotation at once to allow you to embed and then literally become the center of gravity of that space. And the maximum number of arrows of centers of axes of symmetry through any structure in the universe is the tetrahedron. It's more symmetry than any other structure. So by visualizing 7 arrows in space, it's the best way for you to embed in your tetracube of space in general, literally to control that space. And the introduction I was going to do was to just talk about how that's quite literally the origin of the Hebrew alphabet letters, and also the 7 layers of the human heart muscle are precisely in the 7 tilt angles of the 7 spins of the tetrahedron for a similar reason. And the tetracube of space is also behind the Ophanim Enochian, is behind Rovashi Rashi in the Old Hungarian, which as we know now is the Draco language. So all of these ancient traditions for how to inhabit the tetracube of space, even the square markings on the Sanskrit is your position with respect to a cube. So you inhabit the cube. So yes, go ahead, Sarah.
Exactly. So the amazing thing when I start studying with the shamans is that they were talking about death all the time. And if you don't have this natural intuition of what that is about, you get really scared. And
they were talking about death.
Yeah, they were talking about that you need to die in order to gain inertia.
Which has kind of come to the still point or 0 point or the petit mort or something.
That's it. So the amazing thing of Alejandra Casado is that she put into a logic system of reference where the how to get into the 0 point. And if you can see in that picture, you have the two axes, which will be the X and the Y.
Yes, we have that here. And yes.
That X that X is 7 different layers, but actually it just means the time aperture with this different with 7 layers, but actually it means the same. The X means the linear time. It's and that's the way you live the experience. It's only, I don't know if that's understandable.
Well, a classic example would be, it's well known that in the moment before death, your whole life flashes before you. That's an example of time compression.
Yeah. So but the Y, the X, that axis that means the Y is the one that connects you with the source. If you can see, so you can see this different the meaning of that axis, the Y-axis, is the one that goes, it's the direct path to the source, and that is the 0 point. That means when you're living your linear experience, when you're in the present, that means 0 point.
And the vertical Y-axis here is the only axis that connects all seven spins at once. And so that's where they all can converge into a 0 point. That would make.
Exactly. So either way you start working with a shaman or you work with this methodology, you start working with a big understanding about this hygiene, which means working with through the 0 point, doing these exercises like walking in the floor, doing this doing these aids in the floor. That I will explain this.
Yeah, we were going to talk about Deborah Sundbeck's Infinity Walk later was an example of that. But yes, go ahead, sir. Yeah.
And so you can only through the 0 point is when you can really get the pure principle of what reality is about, basically. And that's the understanding of what shareable thoughts are, for example, what a fractal field is really, or non-destructive compression is.
That's right. Yeah, and getting to the 0 point is your ultimate point of reference. So which fits the spiritual metaphor of getting totally still inside. But now we have a pretty specific symmetry practice to get to that still point.
Exactly. And that way of dying for the shamans means only to be in the 0, to connect with the 0 point. And that's something that your body needs to remember. That's why it's very well common in people that learn with shamans that they get you in these ceremonies or they make you go through these situations when you have to really got the feeling of what the vacuum is. And what
the cohering the vacuum, I mean, it's the conversation we were just having with the electrical engineers, but it's really about still point. And that's kind of where the inner voice and the collective unconscious and the communion of saints and the little inner radio, it's all about that still point.
Exactly. So actually, and that's the only way to access to all the potentials, basically. But only because that means that the 0 point is the only path to gain healthy inertia and get to the source. I mean, that's the only way. If you want to, if not, you can hurt yourself, basically.
To find that stillness. Well, that's beautiful, Sara. But did you also then want to say a little more about actually how Alejandro Casado has you do that exercise and with the actual steps? I mean, is that appropriate?
Yeah, of course. I mean, basically, but more practical. These 7 layers are 7 dimensions. These layers of different spin velocities are 7, and starting from the bottom, you will find this is like a system of reference that this is like a universe, basically a logic system that explaining how a universe works. And this universe basically includes the physical, which is the first dimension, we will say, which is basically the physical level, the biology.
Mm-hmm.
And this is only for the brain to understand the way a universe is, because mainly the problem with the human right now is that all society, all what it's around us, it's making us to learn by external reference. So what you get from this is that you don't really know reality the way it is, but only what society has told you. So this gives you not really an accurate perspective of many stuff. Mm-hmm. So with this logic, you can assume different dimensions and how to work there, basically. So yeah.
And from a physicist's perspective, the physicists would say that our organs of perception have a relatively narrow bandwidth of sampling rate on reality, like the optical and the audible spectrum are a very tiny portion of the whole reality. But if you could get your spin density more focused and your sampling rate was higher, you'd be able to see many more axes of spin symmetry and thus other dimensions. So it would, the physics kind of fits the metaphor here, but yes.
Yeah, exactly. So basically these 7, so the first one will be the physical, the second will be the emotional level, which will be like more like electromagnetic kind of frequencies. The third one up there will be the thoughts, the mind. Up there will be the design, the four layer will be, it can be called as the soul actually. It's a program, it's a design. And well, the first 4 layers are the ones that human is living right now. It's the one human is aware right now. The 5th one is the unconscious. And the 6th is the potentials. The potentials is like the quantum field. And the 7th is actually the source, the original, let's say. And with these 7 layers, it's like you can actually, you got all the principles where the universe is, the way the reality is embedded.
So you had a kind of a way to imagine as you visualize 7 figure 8s, one layered above the other, that you were accessing finer and finer realms. And you know, science could use other language for those layers, but still you're accessing closer and closer to the spin center source. So that's beautiful. It makes sense. But then did you want to say more about how you actually did that? I mean, what do you actually visualize as a shaman then?
Well, once you start, the first thing is when you start doing these exercises, is each layer has, you can observe, and it's very important the way your body interacts once you do that 8 in that dimension, because it's like you have to do this exercise, each exercise for each dimension. It's not that you have to, it's like you have to start with the first one, the physical one, and when you do this 8, it's like you reorganize that dimension from the 0 point, because in this system you are assuming what the 0 point is, which is the one that connects you with the source.
The idea would be that if you did the figure 8s properly, You create more embedding, you become more centripetal,
Absolutely.
negentropic, and so you organize the space. Sara, hopefully we can avoid the noise in your background there. So, but Jane is asking a question, Sara. Jane is asking, is it useful to flow a figure 8 between and through my heart and another's heart? You know, beside the mind.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that's possible, but basically it's not, it's, I mean, this is also wisdom from ancient cultures. The Kero tradition, for example, talks about the same, that is that you need to start first self-organizing yourself. You can do that, you can connect yourself. We're connecting ourselves all the time. Doing that aid with other person is what, it's really, many people do this without knowing. It's like a pretty natural human ability. But it's really, when you're really talking about evolution and when you're really looking behind understanding physics, you realize that you need to start reorganizing your own universe in this case. That's why this perspective is so useful, because this is a perspective, a universal perspective that teaches you how to self-organize your own universe, and then the rest happens naturally in a very amazing way.
That's beautiful, Sara. And we have a question, a thought from Vintage of South Africa, Mauritius, I think. He says, is this a metaphor for the way 7 chakras go up to the third eye kind of thing?
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
So
this is a beautiful way to work with, a natural and safe way to work with the Kundalini.
Which is kind of a Kundalini rising, I think. And then Jane,
because basically you cannot work with the Kundalini. I mean, the problem with the people is that they have Kundalini experience without realizing that the 0 point is the basic of the basic of this process. Because if you don't really know what that point of perfect stillness is, it's really dangerous, because the inertia you gain when you have a Kundalini experience is so strong.
Exactly.
That it becomes violence, or it becomes just like an explosion.
Or it becomes like a flame of lightning up the spine. I've been there.
Because exactly, but this is because this it's like it's beautiful at the end, because it's this energy trying to find the purpose.
Which is to help you know your purpose or something too.
Absolutely. And so if you have, for example, this is a beautiful thing. If you have a Kundalini experience and you start doing this methodology, once you have a little bit more of experience, it's amazing the awareness that you get into. It's really like a journey.
It's like
you're safe, because it's the 0 point that it's holding you. It's holding your perception, and that's really the way things should be.
It's kind of like taking control of the snake in some way when you can hold the 0 point, because
it's not control. It's that 0 point that lets you do this.
And Jane is commenting here, Sara. She says, what happens if I draw a figure 8 slowly, repeatedly in the air in front of me, drawing with my hands? I'm reminded of people find it very kinesthetically therapeutic to do a finger labyrinth, which is kind of an extended figure 8. There's lots of ways to do the visualization. And
absolutely,
we're going to talk about the Tai Chi, the Dantian motion later too. So interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, all these things are useful, because basically the figure of the 8, it's a symbol. And it's, I like to, for me, from my perspective, is like the symbols works as an equation in mathematics, basically, for the unconscious, for the human unconscious. Because it means it's a circuit where the energy embeds. So this is what.
That's great, Sara. Dylan is commenting sort of similar to what I said also, Sara, though. Can Sara say more about the actual practice? I'm trying to visualize what the actual practice is.
Okay, perfect. So let's go. Basically...
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Buckle your seatbelt.
Sorry?
Buckle your seatbelt. It was a joke. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, so starting from the bottom of the first layer, which will be the physical, we should understand that you have to start visualizing this and doing this in the floor, okay? Why? The reason is basically because if you do it with your mind at the beginning, it's better if you can ground it. And if you ground it, the best way of grounding things is doing it in the physical level. So it's better to walk. It's better to walk.
So the first step is you walk a figure eight on the floor, sort of like infinity.
Exactly.
Okay.
But basically, the way you have to do it is you have to understand the logic behind that. And the logic is that you have to, this eight, so let's do a little exercise. For the people that is listening, basically, you have to close your eyes and think about this eight. You have to visualize it. You know, like very simple, no colors, no just black, white. You know, no, you have to use absolute logic in here. No, you know, no emotions. You know, very very practical. Very. So, you have to each part of the infinite. You will put in one the past and in the other the future in one side, you know. And you have to decide and you have to feel where the past and the future will be. Normally it's the past will be in your left and the future in your right, but sometimes some people don't. But it sometimes it happens that you can have your, you know what I mean? It's like you have to visualize this eight, and in one side you have the center, you have one side, the left, and you in the other one in the right. Yeah? So one side will be the past, in the center you will have the 0 point, and in the other one you will have the future, right?
Mm-hmm. So if you can feel that meaningfully, where the past and the future converge at the center of your eight, it adds inertia.
This is so, but you don't have to feel this. That's why I want to be really precise with this. This is first. It's very important to learn to use both hemispheres separately. This is basic thing, because the problem, it's a very big problem actually. For example, that we only use the logic for mathematics. And for practical things like business and things like that, but actually for spirituality, people doesn't use the logic, and that's why many people doesn't know what science is about when we talk about spirituality, because people doesn't use the left brain, and this is the way you create your reality. I mean, without emotions, you need the basic, you need the structure. And this is why it's very important when you start doing the eight, that figure, that it's black and white. You need to learn to separate, not putting emotions, just understanding. Just doing the drawing in your mind. And just putting the past in one side, then the 0 point in the center, and in the other side of the infinite, you will put the future, no matter where, but you have to do it. So, and once you have that clear, you start doing if it's clear for everybody, I don't know if anybody has any question.
But so then when you actually start doing this, do you normally still walk it, or after you've walked it kinesthetically, then you can do it with your inner focus? Is that what you're saying, or for the first layer?
So for the first layer, it's a process. I don't really understand your question, sorry.
But when you were, for example, using this in the shamanic healing practice, you didn't actually walk the figure eight.
Exactly, because I've been years working with this. So there's a moment when you get really what the 0 point is, and it's like you become so neutral that you can use it with your mind. But it's not really. But first you need to do it. To ground this information. You need to get some experience, like in everything else, and then it's like you can do it with your mind. and the reason is because the mind, it's a different layer. It's faster.
But you really did find that when you did this practice, you were able to then embed other people's aura more powerfully as a result.
Of course, and with the mind. Mm-hmm. But this is, but it's like you do it in the physical at the beginning, and then you can use your mind. But you need really to understand this. I mean, you understand in a way that like you really need to get some experience, basically, to get some experience and to receive some, let's say, experience, but that gives you an amazing awareness, basically. You need you have a new perspective of emotions, of what, for example, when you do the first layer, it has to do a lot with survival, for example, and it's real. I mean, even if it's just you can say that the first layer of reality is matter, but it's also biology, and the issue with biology is the instinct of survival. That's what you have to work with in the first dimension, basically. The first issue that you have to deal with in the first dimension is it's survival. And it's like, and that's a program that it's like, let's say, the destructive interference that it's happening. It's you have to deal with in the first dimension is survivalism, and that's the opposite of fractality, of perfect compression, because you need to realize that you don't have to be afraid of whatever it's causing you fear at that time. No, so when you have this 8, and you are in the floor, you're like stand in the and so you have to take all the information from the past. When you're in the center, you have to take all the information from the past, like mentally, you put your hands and you imagine, like you are consciously putting all the things from your maximum past till now, till this precise moment in your hands, and then you walk to the future and you leave it, and it's like you will feel like like scanning, like something like vibration in your when you walk to one side of the 8, you will feel like this scanning, really. So you just let it happen, and then you and once you feel like something it's more like still, you feel like more like that scanning has worked, you continue to the 0 point again of in the floor, and then you have to if you can see the image of the in the computer, so you will see that you are in the 0 point, and you have to mentally go in that. You have to image that different layers, and you have to walk to the 1, 2, 3, but in the 0 point will be from the first dimension. In the 0 point, you go up to the 0 point in the second layer, 0 point in the third layer, 0 point in the fourth layer, 0 point in the 5, 0 point in the 6th, 0 point in the 7th. And then you say, this is like the source. You assume that this is your source, and then you go back. Say, this is mental, because you cannot fly for the moment. So it will be like 7, 0 point in the 6, 0 point in the 5, 0 point in the 4, 0 point in the 3, 0 point in the 2, and 0 point in the 1. You assume where you are, and then you let all the information from the future to come to you. And then it's just, you have to let that happen, and then you walk to the other side of the infinite, which will be the past. And in the past, you irradiate all the information that you have been interacting with. That will be the future. You irradiate the future in your past. And when you do this, you go back to the 0 point. So this 8 that you just did is the way you are doing circuit for the energy to embed. from the past to your future and from your future to your past, where the 0 point is the that point that connects you with your origin, with the real source.
And so that basically, once you get a very good center point on the lower planes, you can very quickly move up through them, is what you're saying.
Exactly. It's very important to be clear in this relationship with past and future, and the 0 point that connects them. And the way that you get your past and put it in and carry and walking, you carrying and walking to the future and leaving it there, letting the future, because actually the future is where you get the answer of everything. And this is also very ancient this is ancient wisdom, that all the answers always come from the future. Because actually the future is like, it's only, I mean, a good definition for the future is basically, it will be higher, it's an intuition that comes, it's higher speed basically. It's also like the way you start doing like this spiral to the bottom, that will be the source. The future will be always like the old information. I'm sorry. The future will always be where you receive the information of higher speed. And the problem with the conflict is that you're trying to solve some situation in your present with information from the past. That normally, yeah.
Well, no, that's nice, Sarah. All I can think about is Nostradamus got to see the future because the bottom of his scrying water cup was a phase conjugate coating, which is where the maximum number of axes of spin converge. So if you get enough spin axes converging in one point, the future's there because it's imploded and conjugated. And
the beautiful thing, when you're in the 0 point, when you start doing these exercises, your body naturally starts getting the feeling of what the 0 point is. It happens. You don't really need to work on this like with your mind. It happens because it's a natural human ability to be in the perfect stillness. And the beautiful thing of using the logic for this is that you just assume it, and then you get surprised of what happens next.
You talked about what it felt like to be scanned at a certain moment, that when you get to that still point and the axes are converging, you feel that charge, that pressure, you call it like being scanned. It's like, they call it a mind meld with the, yes.
Yeah, that moment is when you get your past, when you take your past in your hands, logically, you do it. It's like you don't have to feel like I'm doing this mission of taking my past into the future. No, it's just assuming that you're taking your past in your hands and walking to the future. And this can be for shamans. You know what this is? This is a ritual. This exercise is just a ritual. It's just assuming. It's like you're doing something with your awareness, basically.
You take your past in hand and you walk it to the future with intention.
Exactly, that's what you do, and it works. If you do it logically, if you assume it, if you assume this, it works, and you will feel the scanning. It's like you don't have to. Yeah, it's like let's try to be not that emotional, basically, because we don't know which emotions are blocking us or not at this point. So it's just it's a deep process of learning. It's a deep process of learning. So you leave all the past. You take your past, you go to the future, you leave it, and then you walk back to the 0 point, and then you let the future to bring all the past that it's already scanned to you, and then you walk to the past and you irradiate this in your past. You do it, and then you go back to the 0 point, and then you go,
So you're allowing the future then to re-implode your past, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then don't forget just to it's very important to work also the axis, the axis Y, you have to do the 0 point, and in the first layer you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the 7, and to the 7 you go to the 0 point in the 6, 5, 3, 4, 3, 2, and 1, because that is like remarking, it's like teaching your neurology that you have to rearrange yourself with the source, with the path of the source. That's an axis. It's the easiest way of doing this is with an axis, basically.
It's like inviting your future incarnations to have input to your past or something.
Yeah, basically. And with this logic, the energy embeds naturally. It's like you don't really have to worry about using the energy for this or that, because basically this is a narrow perspective. I mean, this is, if you really want to learn what non-destructive compression is, you need to forget about trying to do it by yourself, because we don't, I mean, because in society we haven't been taught to do this. And that's the first thing we have to assume. This is a frontier, and this is the first step to learn, basically.
Which is to take control of your life as a tornado and understand the relationship of past to future. The convergence point is when you focus the tornado or something.
Exactly.
Sara, Mark was asking, do we have, or are we going to have more of the step-by-step process of doing this written out somewhere on the website, for example, or?
Yeah, I would like to give this small. I will give small videos with each axis, basically, like 10 minutes or something. That will show. It will be 7 videos. Videos. Well, and there it will be explained how to do it. It will be like just what it's like a guide, no, like a guide.
Yeah.
Of how to do it. Yeah.
And to make this more clear or sort of convincing, did you want to tell the story at this point of how you used this practically in Carlos's clinic and you actually helped people, or using this, or is that?
Yeah.
Are we at that point in the conversation?
Yeah. Basically, what happened is I was doing those exercises for myself. And I started, there was a moment when I started applying this for people that was getting into in deep states of crisis. No, they were getting during the therapy they were getting really for personal reasons they were freaking out. So I just naturally decide to apply this for them because once you get this again with a 0 point, when you really get that feeling of 0 point of stillness, you become very neutral. Sorry.
Yeah, the perfect neutral point is clearly the point from which the tornado can be steered. It makes total sense, which means almost dispassionate, but in a way of seeing it from a deep perspective or something.
No, and basically this perspective is to use only the logic, because it's once you know that this connects you with the origin, with the source, you just let things happen, and having this logic behind, of course. So I start applying this, and because I already know the feeling of the different layers, the different dimensions, and how it feels to be coherent there, it's like you guide the person, even if you apply that in the person, and you can kind of get the feeling of where the person is because you've been there before. So,
but you're not actually having them do the visualizations. You're doing the figure 8 visualizations.
You do it yourself. But when you're neutral, and this is also. This is why this includes this is a universal perspective. This is like the convergence. You are not you anymore. When you're in the 0 point, you are not. Your identity goes into a second place, absolutely, because it's you connect directly to the source of the other person, to the essence of the other person, and you just have to guide the energy to embed in the right angle again.
I mean, I can really see that sometimes when you're sitting back and you realize that another person, you're seeing all these layers at once at another person, and eventually you get to such distance and pure perspective, you can kind of like feel the whole story at once, kind of thing. From
exactly. But for this, yeah, and you don't, but it's very important not to pay attention to that when you are working with this, because you get so many, I mean, the inertia that you get when you are working with this is so high that you understand that and this is also the free will of, you understand, because of this, you understand what is free will, because you need to, I mean, if you try to, I mean, to read the story of the people, it's one thing, but it's much more interesting and important to let them to go with them into the essence of what is happening there. And so, and the more, it's like if you get distracted by the story of the person, because of we are humans, you will probably get some information of them, and you will lock yourself. You know, you will. This is natural. This is because maybe you're tired, because of you are tired, or you're. I mean, this is also like this is why physics is so useful when you are doing spiritual healing as well, because you need to understand the what means fractality in the sense of
perfect compression.
Perfect, yeah, and the efficiency of how efficient the energy has to be in order to heal. And how you have to be, how you need to stop being yourself. Like, this is also something shamans say. You have to, and this is how, for them, what it means to die. That you have to stop being you when you're working in levels with higher speed or different dimensions or higher dimensions. You can call it whatever you want, but actually it means higher speed.
Yeah, it is a sampling rate. It is spin. That's like the center of a lightning bolt. All two metaphors just keep striking me. One is the famous song "From a Distance." You know, as you get more distance, you get more perspective, you get more leverage. But also the other thing I keep thinking about is Daniel Brinkley's book. After he got struck by lightning and had a near-death experience, his DNA was so superconductive that everyone he touched, he got a flash of all the key emotions of their lives, and he couldn't stand it. He couldn't stand it.
He couldn't stand, and why? Because he didn't. Because the flood of energy was so strong, and he couldn't hold his center anymore.
Right.
So he disappeared, basically.
It's sort of the movie Powder and Daniel Brinkley wrapped into one. So you need to be that lightning bolt, and be able to inhabit the center of a lightning bolt means only pure principle is allowed, or something.
Yeah, and basically this 0 point went. That's why this is like a discipline. When you start with this becomes like a daily disciplines that you apply to yourself, and because the more you get into the 0 point and what it means for you, for your body, for your sense, the more energy you are able to hold. And this is real what evolution is about, basically. This is what evolution is about, and this is the real connection to the source.
Enabling you to hold more charge and more spin.
Yeah, exactly. And so right now, for example, we are in a process that also, it's not only that we are gaining, it's like this epoch, it's telling us we are gaining more and more inertia, not only us, but the whole system we are living in. We are getting more inertia. That's why for many people, it's like all this disease, mental diseases, all these children with THD. I don't know how to THD. You know what that?
Yeah, ADHD, attention deficit. Yes. Exactly.
All this. It's telling us about the increasing spin density that we're getting into, and if we don't have the right focus for receive all these changes, this is what happens basically.
I think that the poem is about in a widening gyre with a center that cannot hold. Sara, the next part of the little outline here was that, would you say a little bit more about your shamanic healing work with Carlos and how, you learned about how shamans do these things with the plasma and stuff and do the healings? Did you want to talk about that for a few minutes, perhaps?
Yeah, of course. Well, Carlos was the name of the shaman that I've been working with, and also many other people that has these abilities. Basically, what they do is working aware, consciously in higher dimensions, not only in the physical. It's like you can say that they do magic, but it's not like they are doing magic. It's that they are working in higher velocity. That's all. And also the fact that for that, if they want to continue alive, they want to develop this skill that has to do with impeccability.
Yeah, impeccability. No, that's. Can you translate also a little bit more in terms of the practical, what Carlos does every day with you, and that sort of?
Well, it's basically the wonderful thing is that this has to do with the methodology. I mean, the only thing that is like it's not. Well, it's very. At the same time, it's very hard to work with a shaman. Basically, it's very hard because they kind of. I don't know if my experience is that they become very, very destructive, very hard. They are hard people because in Occidental world we are very. I mean, we think a lot and we are not practical at all. For example, shamans, like people in ancient traditions, they start working on man when they are kids, and that gives them a lot of grounded perspective that we are not. So if you are not really, you have to be really open to work with a shaman because he will change a lot of things in the basis of your understanding. And
you would say that he actually does see the entities, though. He sees the.
Yeah, he sees the entities. Of course, that's what it means to work in higher dimensions, in higher levels. He can observe. He has the ability to observe from the 0 point, not only the physical but the emotions, which will be like colors or the aura and the trees, the photosynthesis. It's amazing how a shaman explains the way photosynthesis works. It's beautiful because he relates. He can say that's the way, like the way plants. I mean, he relates photosynthesis with implosion, with the way human regenerates.
Oh,
they know about all this. Yeah,
that's beautiful because we just worked out the new equation to prove that the exact two frequencies of the color that make photosynthesis are pure phase conjugate golden ratio down to Planck dimension, meaning that the yellow and blue that causes photosynthesis, or the orange and blue, that actually it's a conjugate implosive process, and the reason it spits out green is because that's opposite to conjugate as the photon 90 degree. So the shaman is the shaman is seeing that, basically. He's seeing the implosion.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And an exercise people can do is to, when in a sunset, for example, you can watch the tree, but only the surroundings of the tree, and I mean that space that it's like the line that separates the tree from the sky, right? Yeah. That space, and you will see like kind of the aura of the tree. It's not something, I mean, all people can, it's not that you have to see something amazing. You will see just a different quality of the light.
Because it's like the physics of the green flash story. The horizon has to be so perfect that the colors conjugate, and then at sunset there will be a green flash. Not just the horizon has to be perfect, but actually the charge of the environment has to be perfectly centripetal. So there's a
And when you see this different quality of the light that it's emanating from the leaves, you will see that at the beginning there's the light going out of the leaves, but there's another layer just right after the light, that it's dark. And that's the way the tree is cleaning. It's cleaning itself.
Well, there's a kind of a black hole at the center of the conjugate photosynthesis, so that there's kind of the 0 point, the still point is a black hole. So,
so when you look at this light the bottom of the leaves in the tree, the shape of the tree, and you breathe, it's like it's also a way to become more coherent yourself. That's
right, because you eventually, if you breathe deeply at that moment, and then your metabolism fire gets more dense, then you become more phase locked with the tree, and therefore your perception is steering the tree. And
exactly. And also beautiful things about this teaching has been to learn how to get the pure principle of things. That's what good shamans should teach people. No, it's like how to get the pure principle from everything. It's like going to a church, going to a temple, going to perceiving the energy of person, of people, of a statue, of stone, and really be able to feel the pure principle behind the distortion. Or let's say the parasites, or the energy, the parasitic energy, because all that is there, but you're able to get the pure principle from everything, which is there.
Now that's a beautiful thing. It's sort of like Nietzsche saying you can't have morals unless you can celebrate tragedy. What he actually means is from the tragedy you see what the universe is learning, the pure principle, and therefore it's not really a tragedy if you see deeply enough. Yeah.
And what I understood from this is that all the distortion that you can see in a temple or in a stone, sometimes stone, people are freaking out with stones, but actually it's not only good what the stones can give you, and normally people just don't realize it's not only about cleaning the stone with salt. It has to do with the past. It has to do with it's like when you start working with this, you realize that you are holding a lot of distortion yourself, because you are not like coherently working with past and future, and you are naturally sharing, like people say in Orient tradition, your karma. Your karma with the stone or with the environment itself. That's why when you are and you really need to gain some discernment in this, and this is what shamans teaches you, to gain this, to be able to perceive the pure principle behind and not get infected by the rest, which has to do with your past, with your personal life, and many lives behind, obviously.
In a way, it's like asking, what would the communion of saints, or what would the collective unconscious need to learn from this situation, the higher view?
Exactly. And this is also shamans and now people that understand this convergence of past and future. This is the perfect methodology and process for learning how to die. Because to die also has to do with to give all your past to your future, to become coherent. Because the reason why we are coming back life after life is because we need to torsionate the field that we are living in order to gain more coherence, to project yourself with more inertia, in order to go back to the source with all the information that we got.
To take all your memory with you. And a torsion, it means to phase conjugate or implode. So basically, to implode your past into your future is...
You don't do that until you don't do this. You will have to come back again and again until you don't take all your information back.
That's interesting. And if we looked at the sequence of geometries people see at the moment of death, Clouvet form constants, and indeed, it was you were quite literally the braid symmetry or DNA recursively geometrically imploding. And if you got it all compressed well, then you could take all the memory with you, and therefore, you're saying would not need to come back.
Exactly, that's it. So I will share these videos about these videos with how to work with these different dimensions. It will be like 7 videos, around 10 minutes, and each video will be the exercise of how to work with this dimension, with different layers.
So we're promising to do this course preps at another level in about 2 months, and by that time you would have more of those.
I want to thank to the people, because this is my first course, and also in English, which is not my native language. I really appreciate the patience that you have had with me, and I really dare the people to follow this, because this is something is growing. It's growing, and it's getting beautiful and bigger. So yeah.
Well, Sara is our token shaman here. We're helping her go through the shamanic process, because it is something that maybe I don't have much of the skills to do either. So I really enjoy hearing Sara's stories myself. Jane is saying, gratitude, you're inspiring. I also think that Sara's accent is kind of gorgeous. I mean, it's really...
Well, I'm trying.
well, that's good. So then the next thing in the outline for the course this evening was I was going to describe other examples of people using this kind of 7-spin process, and maybe we'll do some of that here. So our friend Ananda Bosman in Norway, he calls it the trinitization of the light body. And there are actual witnesses who claim they've seen him disappear. I mean, literally disappear in the process. And what he started with was our friend Lou de Bourbon. We had made a film together about a certain kind of Tai Chi called Caressing the Facets of the Diamond. And basically, and this is a figure 8 exercise, which I think is a bit of an intro to what Sara's talking about here. And I have this on the next slide here. This is Lou de Bourbon on top. He's getting older now, and you see this little figure 8 here. Well, what Lou, and you see the diamond, the octahedron here. But what Lou actually showed was that if he, and maybe I can do this on the camera here, but he would actually take his dantian, his belly button down here, and he would move the dantian, the kind of the belly button. There's actually, I think is it 3 fingers below. And he would move that in a figure 8. First, you had one figure 8 like this, okay, like part of a double dorji. And then he'd rotate that around this figure 8 one way, and then he'd rotate it back the other way. So that was one figure 8 completed. And then he would move his dantian, his belly button, in a figure 8 that was perpendicular to that. So now your belly button is going up and down and over and up. So you're making this figure 8, a perpendicular figure 8. So if you look at a double dorji here, you see how this is a figure 8 here, and this is a figure 8 here. So he's moved his belly button in this figure 8 and then in the perpendicular figure 8 and alternate directions. So that's one double dorji. And then he would do the same thing except the perpendicular. So he'd then move in this figure 8 up and down, so that the double dorji was going in a perpendicular axis, and there would be a pair there. So that's 4 now. And finally, he would go in and out on the z-axis, rotate in and out here, and there's 2 there. So when you're done, you had 6 perpendicular figure 8s making a diamond. And he called this caressing the facets of the diamond. And there were jokes about people would see him doing this on the subway, and he's literally doing a Tai Chi Dantian figure 8 motions and all these axes, and people would think he was kind of crazy. And the fact was, and Lou demonstrated this, that Lou became a genius with what I call proprioception. In other words, for example, he was incredible at juggling. he could find the center of gravity of anything instantly and intuitively, which was called enhancing proprioception. We're going to see later, as this relates in the picture below on our screen, of the Infinity Walk from Deborah Lawrence, who has children who have dyslexia do this figure eight, and it would sort them out quite literally, and they'd have a warming of the blood flow of the corpus callosum, and suddenly the dyslexia would literally disappear, and many years of reading skills would return. It was amazing. You should read that book, Infinity Walk. But getting back to Lou de Bourbon, so Lou had taught this as kind of an advanced Tai Chi motion of the 6 perpendicular figure eights he called caressing the facets of the diamond. And basically, Lou was doing this with a dantian, with the belly button, with the solar plexus chakra, essentially. So this is a film that I had made with Lou almost 20 years ago, as maybe it makes me feel a little old, say how long ago that was. And at that time, I had been teaching internationally with Ananda Bosman, who is quite now well known from Norway, and his current website is anandabosman.com. And he calls this Diamond Body Lotus Training. And what Ananda did was he took this to another level. This is why he calls it trinitization of the light body, because he did this same motion with the dantian, but then he would have people do the same thing with their heart chakra. And I tried this, and it's actually quite powerful. So if you make 6 perpendicular figure eights, first I'm making this one on this axis, and now I'm making this one. I'm going up and down and down and up. Now I go back the other way around that figure eight. So now I'm doing this with my heart chakra, and I make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 figure eights with my heart chakra. And then, there's breathing that goes with this. And then Ananda had people do this with their crown chakra. Now, I tried this with my crown chakra, and I have to say, here, I'll just do a little bit of it. So here's a figure eight with your crown chakra, right? You ever tried to draw a figure eight with your crown chakra? I will tell you, it drives me crazy. I mean, my crown chakra is burning like heck all the time. I have all this Kundalini on it. And so when I did this with my crown chakra, it was too much for me, actually. In fact, even now, just a little bit of it So the point was that Ananda taught people to do this quite rapidly and powerfully with these 3 centers, the trinitization, crown chakra, heart chakra, and the solar plexus. And there are all kinds of reports in the literature supposedly of strange things happening, including there are people that claim they have witnessed Ananda on stage doing this, actually disappearing. And where we teach in Italy, that in Torino, Ananda teaches there as well. And we taught with him in Stockholm and in Amsterdam. Point being that this is another example of using the figure eight motions, but in this case, it's quite literally a figure eight motion to create implosive coherence. And again, when Lou found ability to juggle, called proprioception, increased dramatically, literally find the center of gravity instantly of anything inside you or outside you, because you had done this Tai Chi dantian, caressing the facets of the diamond, proprioception increase. You can see the power of this, again, nesting the figure eights. Dylan is asking, does this relate to moving the assemblage points? It is interesting. Castaneda had what he called the assemblage point, which is sort of the point where you customarily identify with the center of the tornado in your own aura. For example, in my case, perhaps a bit stuck in the head, but I think my assemblage point is pretty high up in my body. But where they say women often have a lower center of gravity. And so, yes, I do think this relates to the concept of rotating the assemblage points. And
yeah, actually, it has to do all with this assemblage points. This is because this is what you need to move in the lower frequencies, in your lower ways of perceiving, which is actually what you can the lower dimensions. It's critical to do this in order to continue increasing your perception.
Yeah, it is about increasing your perception, and the assemblage point concept refers not just to the center of gravity of your aura, but then the center of gravity of what is conceptually important to you. So it's the center of gravity of your priorities as well.
Exactly, and not only this, but you will be able to connect with the center of gravity. For example, suddenly you can naturally perceive the center of gravity of the Earth with a completely different perspective.
Yeah,
over the sun or whatever, any other gravity, any other bigger field.
To get to the center of gravity of anything. Those noises behind you, Sarah, are quite colorful.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay. But this is a very important concept about being able to locate the center of gravity. In fact, and therefore, in order to be at the center of power, whether it's the book Earthing is so famous about, getting grounded barefoot in the stone in the soil. The access to ground is access to a fractal, both for electricians and psychologists, and that actually immune system health depends on this grounding process, which is related to finding the perfect center of charge distribution, called fractal. And that perfect charge distribution defines access to ground because it's the place where all charge can go. But more than that, it means that you provides a point of reference for all of your inner charge with the outer charge. So being ungrounded psychologically is related directly to being ungrounded physically, which means, if your sneakers have very thick rubber soles, then you can never get in touch with ground. So there's a very important health consequences too. And this relates deeply to the Sufi practice that, before you do the Sufi dervish spin, in which you're going to prove to the master that you have pure intention by not getting dizzy as you spin. And because you can locate the center of gravity, the pure perspective, the pure intention, the shareable wave at the center of the lightning bolt, and therefore you will remain there while you spin. So perfect embedding is the Sufi dervish turn, and there's articles about the physics on that. But I actually did this with a Sufi master. Actually, it was Pierre Elliott, the Gurdjieff School in Claymont.org, where we were taught the dervish turning. And the preparation step was that as you breathe, you need to be able to follow your center of attention from your center of gravity down through your feet into the Earth's center of gravity. And if you could track your attention there, and obviously being grounded, like having shoes that allowed electrical contact with ground, is very helpful in giving you balance. The children in the movie Medicine Man, who had such amazing center of balance, they were barefoot all the time. But if your attention could go down to the center of the Earth, obviously then you're adding centripetal force to the Earth, and this gives you more leverage. So Sarah is right. That's the metaphor.
Yeah, in fact, this is like a vertical axis that has to do with grounding and also getting into the source. It's the same axis, the same vertical axis that has to connect you. It's like this direct path that ancient cultures also speak about. And related again with this assemblage points, what happens is why shamans has to move this assemblage point is because normally it has to do with a non-solved conflict that a person has, so the perception is locked.
A non-soul? I'm sorry, non-soul?
Non-solved. It's an unresolved conflict that has not been resolved. Has not been resolved.
I see, unresolved conflict. I see, understood. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So what happens is that the shaman normally has to move your attention out of there with a critical situation where you get completely stunned by, like it can be like you have to be absolutely surprised by the situation in order to move that assemblage point, which has to do that you have to really, for a moment, that conflict evaporates basically. and so that you can, it's like that so that infinite, that past and future actually start flowing, and suddenly you are able to see the reality the way it is. And that means
Jane is asking, Sara, are you addressing the question of how does a person move another's assemblage point?
Exactly. I mean, this is you can do it by yourself with a methodology in a safe way, or also the way the shaman does, and the shamans do it for you, is normally a little bit tough. It has to be like this, because we don't let that happen naturally, because we don't have we don't have really the let's say the awareness to do this by yourself, because we are identified with this conflict, with this crystallized information that it's locked inside of our perception, in our focus. So you're saying we are watching the scene with this lock, with this like, let's say it can be called as it's something that it's like, it's in physics it's called destructive interference. It's or also it's like it's sucking it's the circuit is not doesn't work efficient, because there's a process in the past that is locking the flux.
So getting more relaxed and seeing the deeper picture or something. But are you saying then the shaman actually does something shocking or surprising, or?
Does something shocking in order to get you out of the conflict straight away. Mm-hmm. It's like it moves you into a different state of awareness. And normally it has to do with or touching some points in the body that has to do. It's like this has to do with the chakras and the way the body as a universe has these different layers physically. Like, for example, the heart is like, they say, the fourth chakra, or the third is like the two is the sexual organ. All these glandules that represent the chakras also has to do with the frequencies, which the dimensions are the different velocities. It's like our body, you can perceive, if you connect, for example, with the frequency that your second chakra is irradiating, you will naturally start feeling what you can perceive the world differently.
Is this similar to a Tai Chi master that is said to be able to walk up to you and then push you over without touching you with his aura or something?
Basically. So when the shaman does this, it unlocks something straight away, and you suddenly can see things differently. But it's because it's unblocking the flux of energy, and so your perception changes. It's also, you can use also plants or this kind of things, but normally nowadays, when many shamans does not use it. It depends, and also with the methodology, you do it naturally.
And Jane is asking, Sara, is there an optimal location for the assemblage point to be?
It can be. It depends. It depends on the. It can be. I mean, this shaman. What I know is it's in the arms, but in the back.
Really?
You know, in the back, in the, how do you say, the shoulders?
In the back of the shoulders.
At the yeah, close to the shoulders, in the back. There's 2 points that has to do with this. But actually, what the methodology shows is that each chakra has you have to move the perception not only from each chakra, of each department that govern the it's steering that frequency, no, that the chakra is emanating, that has to do, for example, the fourth chakra has to do with the heart. So I guess I would say that there's some points also in the heart that you can move in order to access to a different dimension, from a different perception of that frequency, right? You can perceive reality differently when you press some points closer to the heart, closer to the, and also will be the same with the sexual organs, or with the sixth, the third eye. Each because it's because this is, you can from each dimension you can observe a complete different reality.
Yeah, so if you're having trouble relating to your girlfriend and your assemblage point is stuck in your head, maybe try something else.
Yeah, you can do this exercise of doing the 8.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
it works.
If you're having trouble,
you know what it gives you? It gives you the ability to respond.
Right.
To any kind of situation. Right. And that's genuinely to be you.
And maybe trying to do the figure 8 exercises actually with your partner to get the center of gravity to prepare for tantra or something even.
But you have to start doing, I mean, at the beginning, it's better to start one by yourself.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Because, no, for sure, because you need the experience of who you are first. Mm-hmm. And naturally, and well, I guess this is like everything else. You need to practice first, and then naturally you will explore. Not only and many paths will open related with this. This is opening right now.
Right.
This is opening right now.
Well, good. I think we're doing well here. Maybe since we have about a half hour left, just to see where we are in the outline here. So then, just to complete the thought about how Deborah Sundbeck in the book Infinity Walk teaches you to do this figure 8 motion, you literally mentally draw a figure 8 on the floor, similar to what Sara was talking about before. And as you walk this figure 8, you do a cross crawl, and here you can kind of see me, with alternate knees and alternate hands as you're walking this figure 8, ideally to your favorite music, and this is ideal for kids. But the interesting thing is, as you're walking this figure 8 and you turn back recursively around that center cross point, you then focus your eyes on the center of the 8. So as you're walking around the 8, your head is constantly rotating, so your eyeballs never leave focus on the center of the 8. So that's absolute reference with respect to relative reference. And that's what forces this extreme blood flow across this corpus callosum. You can feel the corpus callosum get hot. And we know the physics of dyslexia is there are more wires across the corpus callosum, so you get more creativity in dyslexics, but less sorting. But suddenly, if you suddenly start tying this figure 8 motion by crossing the 8 again and again, you're tightening the cross point at the 8, phase conjugate compression, whatever you want to call it. And this what adds the ability for the child to then add discriminating and sorting. So that's why the dyslexia goes away, because everything is, like the joke was, everything is sorted after enough pressure in a fight in an Irish pub. So this is the story of Infinity Walk, and you can see how the figure 8 motion relates to everything that Sara is talking about as well here. It's just so cool that there's a very practical example in the literature, dramatic solution to dyslexia for young people.
It's beautiful also the way we have to learn how to use both hemispheres. That's also, I mean, that's also something amazing. Also, maybe next course we can talk a little bit the way shaman can see, gives this wisdom with also differently to women and men, and related with both left and right hemispheres, because it's not the same. It's not the same. And the left brain has to be with the logic, and the right brain has to do with creativity, right?
Or intuition.
Like abstract energy.
And the metaphor there has usually been the left brain logic is more electrically centripetal, and thus bringing things in for the sorting logic, whereas the right brain, left brain, the logic, is the centrifugal after the sorting, and the right brain is the centripetal, and that's the intuitive because it's drawing stuff in. So you have the centripetal,
Exactly.
centrifugal,
Exactly.
yin-yang
So,
metaphor.
yeah, it's beautiful to understand that the left brain is the one that builds the structure for your reality in order to the energy to embed. That's it's beautiful, because once you understand the logic behind it, you can really make the difference in the way. This is how you really create your reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like saying I want my reality to be like this. No, it's to assume the different layers of the dimensions of the universe. It's not about co-creating your reality the way you want. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's only a mental perspective. But the right way of understanding is that you are the same way you work the same way as a universe. And then you can let the vacuum change your reality. And then there will be a moment where many of them that you will really get into a bliss experience just by nothing. But why? Because you are assuming all the different frequencies, and you're assuming the 0 point in all of them.
You're imploding to the still point. We could have a little joke about that. That as you prepare to do the 7 spins, to create your reality, you are assuming the position.
Absolutely.
And to assume the position, you're actually assuming the center of 7 spins. So if creating your reality is a matter of imploding your cube of space, inhabiting, embedding, as you say.
Exactly.
The metaphors are overlapping here so much so that we're imploding.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's so for this, it's really beautiful to learn things like this, and also because this has been ancient wisdom. This has been ancient wisdom, and the appropriate way of learning. The appropriate way of learning, that it can be called like simultaneous teaching, because it's like here it's not like we are learning just in a linear way, but you are just by talking about this, you are imploding, you are torsionating the different dimensions together. You are making them more coherent.
It's cool the way you've invented your own words, torsionating. See, everybody thought that I was bribing you to use all my language, but no, Sara, you have your own words. That's cool.
Yeah. I'm happy also. It's very interesting to do these courses physically, because there's like the quality of the field that you hold when people are together. It's like the way Dan explains that a shaman drives the people into a bliss experience. Mm-hmm. It has to do with this, because when people are together, naturally the field that they are creating, with this work you can teach your body and all your senses to follow this logic, and naturally you have a clear vision of what the universe is, and this gets naturally into a bliss experience, because there's nothing more beautiful than this.
Mm. And to just do the logic for those who want the physics. When we
exactly,
when we talk about torsion field, torsion is the Russian term for scalar, which actually is usually in physics called a longitudinal wave component of the EMF, and that's the component of the electromagnetic wave that is accelerated and is superluminal and goes through about anything. Sort of good introduction to collective unconscious and the mind of God. And literally, phase conjugation is how you produce the longitudinal component, where the transverse up and down wave translates a vorticity down the screw, the helix, the phase conjugate, and that's what turns the up and down transverse electromagnetic into the longitudinal, which is horizontal compressional, and it's that longitudinal wave that does all the everywhere at once kind of magic, which is a perfect introduction to all these spiritual ideas. It's more than metaphor. And Sara, then sort of last on our little outline for you here was, would Sara like to talk a little bit about her shamanic healing of houses, house whispering, and how you got into a commercial aspect of your shamanic practice in real estate? Did you want to tell that story a little bit? Or?
Well, this is also starting like a few months ago, and this is all about, again, this is once you get this universal perspective, you can apply this to anything. And the houses is it's a critical aspect in human life. And once you, but this needs to go a little bit deeper in the principle, what the different dimensions, the different layers are about. Maybe we can, but basically the house can be reorganized following this perspective. And for example, the physical, in these 7 layers that I already talked before, you can just, following this, you can apply the materials, which will be like pretty much by architecture point of view. You can use the right materials in order to follow more coherent,
biologic materials, etc.
Yeah, biologic materials and also emotions, like following, taking care of magnetic, the electrosmog and all these.
The geopathic zones and things, yeah.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And each layer can be, you can help, once you know the different dimensions and how to work there, it's really easy to find, to help, to provide elements that will combine and make a house more self-organized,
mm-hmm.
basically.
More grounded. But were you actually dealing with ghosts in that process as well?
Yeah, and but the good thing about this is that when you apply this perspective, the problem, the thing with ghosts is that they have to do energy that it's magnetically. You can speak about ghosts like energy that is stuck and has forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Stuck, yes, stuck, yeah. And that doesn't. Because they are not in the physical anymore. They don't have the chakras. And what are the chakras? The chakras is the motors, like the reactors that provides human to go into bliss and to connect with source. But a ghost cannot do this anymore because they are not alive. They don't have the chakras. So it's like they remain stuck in the linear time, let's say. So what happened with this is that, and this in the house, because we don't have the knowledge of what an altar is, or to create centripetal forces in the house that can help humans there to implode the energy. So these frequencies, you can call it ghost, you can call it, and many other things that doesn't have to do with ghost, which basically means energy that is stuck and it's looking for a way to go back.
Yeah.
To gain inertia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite literally. We worked with a lady named Marcia Andriola, who was teaching what was called multidimensional cellular healing, very famously with a guy named Ken Page, who had done a lot of work with Drunvalo and also at Montauk. And they were using muscle twitches to talk to ghosts in bodies. And but the thing, I used to always joke with them about, well, you're a kick-butt ghostbuster. And they would always respond, no. That if you want to persuade a ghost to move, you need to love and you need to embed and you need to feel the pain of, and basically you need to give them a place in which to gain the inertia of compression to be accelerated.
But the thing is that nowadays, you don't have time for that. Nowadays, in the sense that now the time is going so fast that you really need to, you cannot think of in terms of that. If you think about ghosts like that, you have to really dedicate your life to that. And that's not something people want, because people want to do whatever they have to do, which is normal. And so the practical way of looking at this is that you need to be coherent enough to gain inertia yourself. And for that, you can use your house as well. So you can use materials, you can take care of electrosmog, you can also play with frequencies related with thoughts and well, higher, but also the archetypes, also the design of the house related with sacred geometry and with golden mean, and also the way the unconscious works in human life, which will be the fifth layer, the unconscious. So all these layers can be just like the structure of the house, basically. And so you don't have to worry about, let's say, well, downset goes, but actually any
plasma field, charge field, yeah.
Plasma field, exactly. That's the right way, the right word. The plasma field that is stuck actually in the past.
So basically, any plasma field, not just ghosts, is susceptible to being organized if you can give it a centripetal force, and therefore it's sorted, it's embedded, and then it's distributed well and enters, returns to the fractal. And all those metaphors are quite literal in terms of how you deal with geopathic zones in houses, etc.
So we are working in architecture, biologic architecture, applying all this since a few months till now, and well, in Dubai and Italy, and well, this is all starting, and we are very happy to because this is what a universal perspective should work. You have to apply all this to all kind of things, and one of them it's obviously a house, which is a fractal of you. It has to be like that. A house is the place, it's your sacred space. It has to be like this.
So it's kind of cool that Sara actually has a partner in Italy. They're doing presentations in Dubai on sort of shamanic and spiritual architecture based on these principles, and so people are recognizing the spiritual health of the house is the house's ability to be centripetal and self-organizing and implosive and fractal. And
we will show more information once we will all this will be in the website when we soon.
Yes. So
as soon as we can, we will show all this information and give some courses and information.
Because they're putting together curriculum for these presentations in Dubai, so some of that material will become part of what we add to the website with Sara, which is very cool. Sara, we have a few questions here. One is, Jane is saying, is part of this not to build above the second layer, the second story? Because, in the past I have said that the research seems to indicate that people who live above the third floor in houses have, in general, more health problems, obviously, presumably because of lack of grounding. So it would be interesting to think about that in terms of high-rise buildings fundamentally then have more shamanic problems, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Less
and
grounded.
the higher it is, the more problems you find in people's.
Yes, it actually, if the Hobbit houses in the Hobbit movie, they were little lows embedded in the earth. Yeah, Hobbit houses are good, but another question we had here is: can you project an 8 onto a building or into a building and clear it by?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Visualize a figure 8. It's kind of so you actually, if you see there's a sick plasma field somewhere, you visualize a figure 8 over it and implode it.
Yeah, but you really need to get the idea of past and future, and this is what I will explain a little bit more in the next videos, because it's not only about the 8, but for a reason, because we need to really dive into what it means, that figure, and we are, that's like a process of awareness, of gaining awareness. And for the start to use the past and future and to do it for yourself gives you really that's the start. You have to start doing it yourself and really getting the feeling of what that is, and then the the magic of that is also your reality will change. So you can use it, and then you will naturally see that you can apply those things for the things that the parts of your life that are naturally like your skill. You know what I mean? For example, in my case, it's bioarchitecture, but there's also for healing people. But you can apply that for art, for gaining creativity. All these things you can start getting more and more. Your skills will get more and more coherent. But yeah, you can do it for a building, of course. And also, this is a shaman, shaman wisdom, to learn how to interact with the environment. Not only like from something that you are taking from the earth, but really learning how to interact with the earth, with the building, with the sun, with with what is around you. This is something shamans it's very encouraging because it's really something that gives you a lot of health. Gives you health. What do you say? It gives you just by doing all those things, learning how to interact with the land, with all these things, gives you a different perspective, that it's more coherent and more convergent and more absolutely necessary at this point.
This could relate to what we were talking about what is a electrical definition of a shaman. And one thought was the shaman was someone who was plasma projective, and what that meant was they could then throw their weight around, in the sense of they could throw their plasma bubble around and therefore interact with anything in their environment by moving their charge bubble in and out of anything they chose, from an eagle's eye to a geopathic zone. And so plasma projective. And so that's when we used to teach the tensegrity exercises of Castaneda. And one of the exercises looked like you were reaching down and pulling your aura out of the earth like you were picking a carrot. And then you would put your hands over your head and you would blow through your hands like you were blowing your aura out the top of your head. And you were practicing being plasma projective, which is to throw your aura around. The Shem meaning access to a black hole, and An, Anu, sun god, or perfect slipknot, quite literally Shem An.
But it's so important to be clear that for this first you need to get the idea really clear of what the 0 point is. And nevertheless as well, you need to do those, you can have all this amazing experience that is talking about, but also not forgetting that you need, the first of all and most important is to learn how to solve things in the physical, in the slowest frequency. It's like, because there is where you will see your mistakes, your lack of coherence. It's just actually it's a blessing when you start putting attention in your daily life mistakes, because then when you start, that will give you the solution to not get lost in higher dimensions, basically.
Yeah, so be grounded enough to deal with your daily dharma, and from there you will find the...
Yeah, so it's a process that goes, that's why you start with the first layer. You start with the first dimension first, to reorganize, to focus that there's even in the densest part of reality, you have to focus the 0 point and not getting affected by your need of survival. You need to focus on you need to understand the perfect stillness, even in the lowest frequency, right?
And Sara, would you comment on the frequent criticism of the shamanic lifestyle that says that shaman are famous for dying young because they tend to see everything as a kind of a battle?
Well, I really, because I have experienced that really close, I really need some time myself to understand that. I mean, for me, it's well, I don't know what to say really, because it's the shamans have an amazing awareness. I mean, if it's we're talking. It's very talking in general, basically, because each person has a different teaching, and not all the persons. Actually, I like the definition that Dan has as a shaman, like a person that is able to fuse with the black hole, not to
to be the tornado.
Yeah, absolutely, to steer the vacuum, and that's the real definition of a shaman. So when there's a person with that ability, which is actually evolution, that's why humans have to achieve. And when people are putting in risk their lives, having these abilities, normally for teaching or for, well, you can see battles. I don't know, maybe that's in Castaneda's books and all this information. And I think it has to do with speed. It has to do with inertia. It's hard. It's easier to die when you have more inertia. That's all.
And so it is about gaining inertia. That's true, which is similar to Celestine prophecy saying,
like when you're driving in a motorbike, the more speed you gain, the easier is to have an accident, right? Well, the same happens with shamans. That's why it's so important to learn for example, impeccability. You can learn in your daily life. You don't have to.
That's right.
You can start with the easiest things, because actually that will give you be aware that the safety to continue your learning by yourself, basically.
As you get closer to this,
it's really important. That's why in history there's this master that tells the disciple to clean the floor again and again, and it's those exercises. They are trying to save their students to continue to be able to hold more frequencies, more perceptions.
As you get closer to the center of the lightning bolt, you must be more and more impeccable, or else. And Castaneda put that in the term of he said he was talking about when the first time you take the magic mushroom, you think you're seeing through the mushroom. But the second time you go, you realize the mushroom is seeing through you. And so it's actually who is more centripetal gets to be who is seeing through whom,
Exactly.
And
so that's why it's so amazing to have the methodology, because you don't need the mushroom for that. You just need to have a clear system that holds the energy for you. And that's your brain. You can use your brain directly. You don't need any. I don't know. In Spanish, we say the word intermediario.
Intermediary.
Exactly. That's what the mushroom is.
And
you don't need.
And Castaneda used to talk about, well, then when you encounter this powerful plant entity or any entity, you need to learn how to make it your ally. Like, for example, they said the tobacco entity was very strong, and so you could get, the tobacco could kind of take you over and you get addicted. But if you do it properly, you can do it in such a way that it becomes your ally, and then you're not controlled by it.
Yeah, and from your language, that means that you can share the wave perfectly with that tobacco plant, for example. You can share the experience. You can share perfectly the experience with that being, and that can be with a couple. That can be with your son. That can be with. Actually, that's interact. That's what shaman and all angel culture says about learning how to interact.
And so that kind of.
But I'm not saying it's bad to try this experience, but it's obvious that nowadays we have to deal with many people who people has have to deal with addiction. So, this means that we need obviously to mature. It's like you cannot interact in a healthy way if you are going to become addicted to something. And that's also that's also not only happening with drugs, but also with relationships. It's the same mistake, you know.
And this is a subject for next week's course, the physics of bliss versus addiction, that actually addiction is a kind of a wrong turn on the right road toward a bliss process. And so we're all hungering for this bliss process because it's what gives us access to the still point and therefore the perspective. And the sense of making an ally of also fits this idea, well, you know, I'm a little tornado and this mushroom god or anything is a bigger tornado, and you're going to let the mushroom god see through.
Exactly.
You're going to let the mushroom god see through you and yet maintain your own perspective. So that's perfect embedding. So you're very aware that all these higher beings are looking through your eyes, and you're perfectly okay with that, and then they're your ally. You know? Yeah,
but actually that's not what happens. Actually, that's not what happens. I mean, people are not strong enough to do this, and because we don't have the awareness to do this. And why? The only reason is because we don't know what the 0 point is for us. I'm sorry, I have to say this all the time, but this is the reason why we have all kind of problems. And the different, you know, this has to do, the mushroom thing has to do with the 4th dimension. It has to do with programs. 4 dimensions is the one that represents it's like the architect of the design. But then it's like the 5th dimension gives you the equations to build a program, and the program is manifested in the 4th dimension. And I don't know, maybe this is too much, but what's the program that the source used in order to give the experience on the physical? What's the perfect program that the source used to create in order to embed into the experience? Well, what the source used was the soul.
Yes, which is the sort of it's like DNA over 1 billion years knows what it's looking for.
So in the one program is a soul. It's like my name, Sara. It's I'm living the experience, but my soul is the design that I'm made with. And these energies, for example, the mushroom, what it's doing is it's working in the 4th dimension, and it's acting as a substitute of a connection with the source. I mean, that, I don't know if the idea is clear, but what it's happening. Yeah.
The concept of this word, you know, access to the source there might have a parallel to the way the Aboriginals did it, which was they were always aware of their ancestors looking through them. So I remember at certain times when I would travel, and you'd suddenly be in front of something incredibly beautiful, like a sunset on the mountains or something, and there'd be that certain moment when you'd realize that other beings were looking through your eyes, perceiving this incredible beauty. And then you realize this is sort of ancestral memory and collective mind, and it's the source.
Absolutely. And for that, you know, in that figure in the layers, there's 1/8 that doesn't go in the axis, in the horizontal axis, but goes in the vertical axis in the picture.
Yeah.
You can see that 8, and this is this is the way you contact. I mean, that 8 means that you are connecting your physical, your name, with your soul, and your soul is the one that contacts with the source. And once you have that clear, that interaction between the source, that's the Trinity basically. The source is connecting connects with the soul, and the soul connects with your physical. And once you have that clear, that aid working clearly, logically for you, then you can really connect with all this, or your ancestors, because your connection with the source is clear. And then is where your ancestors that are already connected with the source can interact with you, but not before, because that connection has to be clear. Because if not, you will have a lot of interference.
Maybe this sets the ground for a bit of a conclusion here. I'm remembering Jane Roberts' Seth Speaks book, Education of Oversoul 7, The 7 Layers of Soul. And she basically says that if you have intuited enough of your soul purpose that you then begin to act upon it, then more layers of your soul come into the present and see through your eyes. And she actually said there were 7 and then 7 times 7 layers of the soul. And so it's very reminiscent of Sarah's conversation, the original Jane Roberts book on Education of Oversoul 7.
I see. It's interesting.
That was one of the early books that led me on the path, actually. And she talked about, for example, that there's 7 different incarnations of the soul, all happening at the same time. And sometimes there's a bleed through in memory, like if you see a pattern on the cave wall as a primitive that matches what you're going to see, 1,000 years later in an incarnation on a cathedral wall in Europe somewhere. And there'll be a bleed through between memories of different incarnations of the same soul. And that's kind of like what Sarah means by the vertical axes here. Certain patterns will link up across different lifetimes, and suddenly the whole soul purpose across many lifetimes becomes visible.
Exactly. Well, but this is really hard to manage until you don't have like a system, a reference to where you can use in order to dive into all this.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the logic is so important. Yeah.
Sara says to dive in or to embed. Well, this is good. Well, Sara, we have about 2 hours finished here now, and let's see, this is normally the time where we open this up to questions and very open conversation. Did you have any sort of final comment you wanted to make, Sara, or any thoughts here as we ask for questions? Or
I'm happy to answer any questions by the time, and maybe then we can just get in.
So, yeah. So Kevin says the water molecule is a good wave application to this area. It's true that if we understood the construction of a water molecule with implosive hydrogen at the center.
Absolutely. In fact, the water is the perfect substance that can work, that can, let's say, give information, no? Like
mm-hmm.
that
mm-hmm.
can, it's like the source. Yeah, it's a perfect.
It can be a perfect imploder.
Imploder, yeah, absolutely.
And it's a rich metaphor here that the word chem, as in chemistry, the study of electron orbitals, is the same as the word is in shem, as in shaman, or schematic. That actually, if you studied chemistry well and studied how electron orbits kiss noses at the center of vortex pairs, you're suddenly learning how shaman implode space and become centripetal and inhabit and steer tornadoes. So that's why we always translated the word shaman, shem meaning access to a black hole, which is actually the fractal implosive process.
Yeah, and that implosive process also, it's beautiful to use the water as an example, because it's the information can be it's like the perfect vehicle,
yeah.
The perfect vehicle to make that, because of the quality of the particle of the water,
mm-hmm.
or the water particle.
Yeah.
It's the perfect vehicle to work with that
mm-hmm. Yeah, they
transmit that information. Yeah.
They say the water molecule is the chemically perfect balance between ionic and covalent bonding. And what that means is between the shortwave embedding and the long wave embedding, which
it's the perfect quality, yeah.
And the connection between the perfect shortwave and the long wave embedding is literally conjugate or fractal. So that metaphor fits. Well, good. Any other questions here this evening? Oh, Rosa Cardona asks, what about the use of sage? You know how they use sage for purifying air in Native American rituals?
Yeah, well, this can, you know, using the methodology, this has pretty much to do with the second layer. The second layer, the second dimension, which has to do with emotions. And when you burn the sage, well, it helps, of course. It helps with, how to explain, it prevents the energy that it's stuck in the environment to organize in a distorted way.
It actually releases the stuck energy. It's interesting that it's famous that Professor Phil Callahan, we made this film about his work with the native tribes, etc. And the shaman used the cigar smoke because he needed to remove a negative entity that was inhabiting Professor Callahan's liquid crystal fluke oscilloscope. And what happened to the screen of that oscilloscope was so puzzling to the repair shop that they had to re-examine the laws of physics on the power of cigar smoke or sage smoke. And what they found actually was the frequencies of the infrared create actually the physics of olfaction and a whole business about power of sacred smoke.
Oh yeah, of course. And something beautiful about this, from my experience, is that, well, it's you can use the sage, but for example, a good way of working with this is that you can use the sage, but you must not forget that the real thing happens when the person implodes.
They get to the still point.
So you have to combine both. It's not that you have to use the sage and just not think. You just have to be thinking about going to and buying in the market. You know what I mean? It's maybe this sounds. It sounds.
So it's even the way you gather the sage with intent and do the whole ritual.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to really to realize that the sage is just a tool, but it won't help anybody to. I mean, the most amazing ability that human has is to implode. And when you have all these problems, how do you say, like this astral hygiene issues, it's like you have the most amazing gift that you can have, and this is your body, and your body is the one that lets you implode, and your attention, of course, and the ability to get into a bliss experience. So when you empower yourself with the knowledge of these abilities, and then you use the sage, and then you can do a marvelous work. But you don't really need the sage. You can use it as a tool, and it works. It can work magically. But it's more important than any other thing to empower yourself with the knowledge that imploding is when you really clean whatever you want.
And good, Sara.
The more you go there, the more you won't need anything else.
That's great, Sara. And then that concept about astral hygiene brings us to the next question, which was Gary Clark saying insight into the intent of Native American drumming and dancing. And I'm reminded of the trance dance film and that we used to show, and it showed all of these native tribes, Kundalini, etc., doing these trance dances. And, you know, the drumming and the trance would, in many cases, allow them to have voices of ancestors, which was on the positive side. But on the negative side, it was an invitation to many entities to come into their bodies. And discriminating there is the astral hygiene question.
Yeah, well, welcome to planet Earth.
Yeah.
This happens all the time. I mean, this is the way we learn. day by day, and nobody, because many people, I mean, just by getting into the bliss experiences with those those exercises, those drumming ceremonies, becomes healthy and becomes well, high vibration, let's say.
Yeah.
But that high vibration is the bliss experience. Is to get inertia. It's just to help whatever you are calling to join and to get into this bliss, to connect this connection with the source. Mm-hmm. And if not, if you are well, if you have other, if you don't really get into that rhythm, well, then something more distorted will appear.
So the answer that Gene Houston gave at that time about astral hygiene and the trance dance from the tribes was that if you just go into these trance in an uncontrolled setting, drug experiences or something like rave concerts sometimes, then a lot of astral entities, many of which are probably not really useful. But in the ancient tribal setting, you actually had a complete circle of the extended family standing there with absolute intent and focus, and that would then invite in only the actual ancestors of that tribe who were part of their wisdom tradition. So the discrimination was a collective gathered focus intention, which is a good answer.
Yeah, exactly. And well, this all has to do with also by architecture and the way of conceiving the way you are doing these rituals, to do it in nature, to do it in a place that it's more fractal, that it's collaborating with you.
Yeah.
By getting into this experience.
Yes, if you could do it in the right environment and natural embedding, good. And Sara, our next question, Eden Grace says, can you speak more about grounding to help disperse negative or painful energies being held in the plasma physical bodies?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I didn't.
Can you say more about grounding to help disperse negative or painful energies held in the plasma or physical body?
But grounding these energies, basically.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I don't know if I really understood the question.
Well, in other words, we talked about grounding as a way to create healing, for example. So I think the book Earthing, actually, Eden Grace, in a way, is an answer to your question.
Yeah, but actually, grounding. I mean, for me, when some chart that doesn't have a center, its own center, and goes closer to you, it has to do pretty much with the experience that you have to live and what you need to learn. So in order to ground that, you need to solve the conflict. But I don't know exactly if it's what this person is talking about.
Well, there's lots of ways to talk about grounding, and that's one way. It's good. Basically, from an electrical perspective, access to ground means a point of reference from which all charge can be distributed and made into a shareable wave. So actually, the point of ground is the place where all conflicts would be sorted. And electrically, what that means is when you can walk barefoot in the mud or something and you get grounded, then your actual emotions get sorted. And so it's profoundly healthy, I think.
Absolutely. That's something that helps, but it's just something that it's outside of you. Never forget. It's something that you can use meantime. But it's much more interesting to be able to become more centripetal yourself.
Mm-hmm. And grounding is part of the process of becoming centripetal. So it's
exactly.
Yeah.
So this, for example, this being concerned of this logic, these two axes, just to being aware of this axis, the y-axis that it's connecting from the 0 point to all the layers that ends up into the source. That's the right way to do a perfect grounded without effort.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting point, that if you visualize the vertical axis in the 7 spins properly, this is connecting you to ground perfectly. Well,
it's just a beautiful thing to, if you can explain, I can do it myself as well, to derive what it means to derive the information.
Which is to say, to derive from the fundamental first principle, that, like hydrogen, are derived itself from pure fractality, so it's self-organizing.
Yeah. I will say too, I don't know, I think I don't know if we have to finish, but just 2 beautiful exercises that people can do. It's one of them is related with the question of the person that just did the last question, is when you are aware of some kind of issue that you might have, doesn't matter the dimension that you're talking about. It can be like a daily life, like physical problem, like a disease, or it can be like a magnetic, electromagnetic kind of issue. It doesn't matter. Whatever the issue is, you have to derive it to the origin.
Yeah.
Which means that you have to send the information, like from your perspective, from your 0 point, you visualize those 2 axes, and from the 0 point, you send to the source, to the 7th layer, that information. Just with the logic, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to like these exercises, like I'm sending this white light or this blue light. No, it's just assuming that you're sending that information, just like the way the router does with the mobile or with the router. Or with the computer. It's the same principle. You just send it.
So it's like feeling the deep cause of anything, and just the process of feeling the deep cause, the original root of the issue, just that awareness itself is enough to sort it.
Exactly, but because human right now is not normally, when you really have a problem, it is because you are not able to feel that, to feel the pure principle behind it. So you need to send it to the source with the logic, because if you try to feel it, you won't succeed. Why? Because you don't have the deep understanding of what is happening in your life at that point. So what you're doing is to being humble and sending that with logically to the origin, as the same way that the Wi-Fi works,
Back to the origin.
And then the situation will change. Then things will move.
The awareness itself will make the rearrangement. Well,
exactly.
I think that's very well said, Sara. But we have another question, Sara, from another lady named Sara.
Okay.
Sara Phillip. She says, Sara, do you use stones or crystals in your personal work or in your healing work?
I found stones are beautiful, and I've used it. I really once you learn how to, or you get the feeling of how to interact with the different, whatever it's around you, stones are beautiful because of the quality of the frequency that they have. I mean, it's billions of years
of memory.
Memory.
Do you use them yourself? Do you?
It's like, for me, it's more like you can. No, not really. It's like you can interact with them the same way you talk with a person. The same way you interact with a person, you can interact with a plant, with a rock, with a stone, with whatever you want. But not really. You don't. I mean, from my perspective, to work with, to be in the vision of needing a stone to work with this and that, actually it disempowers you.
So you don't really need, as long as you're clear that you don't really need it, but you can do it playfully and for fun, and
you can you can just share your connection. I mean, it's just beautiful to interact with all those elements that we have in the environment. But just learning what to interact means, and not to be dependent of.
Interesting. Well, great. And then the next question from Robert Rivard. When discussing or hearing about the power of emotions or the emotional body, what is the best useful way to understand or make use of and manage of emotions, perhaps on a physics perspective or as an energy?
Well, as everybody I think knows here, emotions are the energy in motion, no? And this is driven by thoughts, as we all know as well. And so I really, again, I have to go back to the methodology in the sense that we really need, because of the external reference that we all have been interfered by, because of society, because of our parents, it's the story that we are living, no? This movie. We really need to have a new way, and this is happening already, but we really need to assume that we need a new way to feel sometimes. And well, emotions, it has to do with the glands. It has to do, if you look at it from the physical perspective, you have your chakras, you have your glands working your body, so you really have to take care of them. And the quality of your glands that until the 20-something, it continue evolving. You can really learn from how to take care of them, and really the quality of those motors, those reactors, can really drive you into managing amazing amounts of energy.
Yeah, so glandular emotion is something you can ride powerfully. You know, that section, that pure geometric origin of emotions, we had in that web article, goldenmean.info/touch, where we looked at the Centix work, where they just analyzed, you would touch a transducer, a pressure sensor that would map the graph of pressure over time for anger versus joy versus love. It was a very specific set of ratios. Basically, love was golden ratio, perfect embedding, and you could see that in the actual ratio, the way you would touch to say I love you, whereas anger was 1/7, as the wave shape was literally in the physics of music, which is destructive wave interference. And so you can, where joy was 1/6, etc. So you actually see the pure, it's a pure geometric language for projecting charge, either constructively or destructively, and that's glandular emotion.
Yeah, and that has to do also with the fifth dimension, in a sense that the fifth dimension, as I spoke before, has to do with the unconscious of human and of each alive system, or it doesn't have to be alive. Actually, it has to be with just the equations, that the way a system is built, the logic that that builds the system. So in terms of glands, you really, when you apply, this is, let's see if I can explain this accurately. When you apply sacred geometry visualizations to a gland, if you apply the right geometry, you can let's say make the gland work more coherently. You can give more more strength. You can optimize the work of that gland, really. And this has to do with the giving the. This has to do. Let's say, Dan, if you can help me with. This has to do with negentropy. It has to do with negentropy and the way you revert to time in order that so the gland can work in the with perfect efficiency.
And so, if you knew more about how different emotions, like the liver is often associated with, what is it, anger, and the certain.
Exactly. So when you have the logic of how to work with
emotions in the glands.
With the gland, exactly. That's it. So you can really get amazing results. Literally amazing results of the quality of the emotion that you feel, because it will be so pure.
Yes.
That's why it's so important, the fifth dimension, to be in the center, to understand what the 0 point is in that label.
And remember,
in the unconsciously.
And remember, what we're talking about here in terms of higher dimensions is symmetry within which more axes of spin can be superposed, so that, finding your center of spin with respect to 7 arrows allows that number of axes of spin to be, that's the number of dimensions you can live in. And so that's where more spins converge.
Yeah, and something, maybe this is a strong subject, but this has to do also with higher intellectual beings, no? Because this is
higher
let's
beings.
say, yeah, because
they just live in a world of more.
Let's talk about the gods a little bit, not from history, but from a perspective, from a universal perspective, in the sense of this methodology, of course. When we speak about the 5th dimension, when somebody is able, or a shaman can do that as well, but related with the being that is able to work, to find the right equations, to create a design which will be the 4th dimension, a program or a person. It can also, when somebody has the knowledge, the wisdom, or the consciousness to build something like that, then you became a god.
You can actually project shapes and heal someone else and know what shapes are needed.
And also related, and for example, then related with technology, if you want to do high technology, that implosive technology, you really need to get inside of the 5th dimension of the right equations that that will be the structure of the principle to build that implosive technology. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is actually what alphabet letters do to create quantum mechanics. And wonderful. Hey, and maybe this might be the last question. There's another question from Sara Phillip. Sara, she says, I was wondering if a person has a parasite within the body. As a shaman, would you see it as an entity? Would you see it as an entity that is caught within the aura or energy bodies, in terms of seeing entities inside other bodies? Are they caught there? Are they?
This has to do more, from my perspective, it's not that they are, well, let's say if in one side you find out that the gravity, your heart, as Deb knows, is gravity, and it's like an attractor. And because of your emotions, because of your past, of your memories that are crystallized, and all this that we've been talking related with past and future, you can really say you can say that that entity might be stuck there, but don't forget that it won't only be stuck in you, but in your family as well. In a sense that it has to do more with gravity related with emotions, with magnetically. You know what I mean? It's stuck in the body, but not only in the body, because there, in that dimension, or in those fields, you're talking in a different space and time. You're not talking really. It's not like here. It's not like in the physical, but because you're talking in a different version of time. It's not like you can. It's you blink an eye and you can be in a different place. I don't know if it's, you know what I mean. So it's not like if that energy is just stuck there.
It's almost like
process that you have to deal with, and it will be not only in you but in the field that you're around, because your family, it's like it's a process that you are learning, but not only you but your family, your people that it's around you. So you have to be aware more in where you are and why, and then you will understand why is this energy there.
Like advanced family constellation therapy gets to see the whole big picture of lineages, and why entities are there can have lots of tangled roots in many extended families.
Yeah, exactly. So actually it's a beautiful process of learning. That's what it is at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great, Sara. I think we had fun tonight. I think we thank everybody for the questions, and people are saying thank you so much. We have thank yous from Kevin and Lisa and Vintage, and so everybody says thank you, Sara.
And I'm more than grateful. Thank you for the patience at the beginning, and so grateful.
Yes, sorry if our logistic technicalities weren't really smooth here tonight, but we tried to share a real shamanic experience as well. And let's agree to meet together in the dream spell at some point when it's appropriate. And Sara will be coming back in a couple of months, and we'll be putting more information on the website. And you can contact Sara also through the website, 7arrows.net. And so we can keep this little conversation going, and we'll reconvene here in a few months. Sara says that I was in her dream last night. Thank you, Sara. Okay, well, thank you, Sara, down south in Spain, and thank you all, everybody, for joining us. And let's stay in touch, and we will be together in the 0 point. Of
course.
Blessings. Sweet dreams, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sara. Bye.